that I got, and I think it's how it happened. E.T. was Steven Spielberg's first big movie. He had a very successful movie prior to that, and he had some smaller things, but E.T. was big time, and the story was fascinating and so on and so forth. And the bicycles, as anybody that's seen the movie, were an intimate part of the movie. And Spielberg, to his credit, has always researched what he does really well. And the story that I understand, I'll be damned. That's me, I think, excuse me. Speaking, the story short was that on that deal is that what I heard is that Spielberg lived in I think in like Reseda or some part of the valley, and was on his way to the studios, and there was a vacant lot with 4 or 5 kids riding their bikes in some dirt and jumps and stuff in the lot. And he stopped and he talked to him personally. And he asked him, and there's always one kid in the bunch that's like the king of the pack, you know, the main man. And he was riding a Kuwahara. And they asked him, what's the best bikes? And the kid said, Kuwahara. And so he went to the studio, or his offices, and said, I want to get a hold of Kuwahara bikes. And they called Japan. Japan said, we have a company in California, Everything Bicycles, Howie Cohen. And they called Everything Bicycles. And Craig McGuire, whom I had put into the business when I had Dirtmaster back in the day, he was my salesman in NorCal. Craig was Everything Bicycles GM. And so and if you're in the business, and it's probably the same in the car business or anything else, but if you're in the bike business, you're getting hustled all the time. I mean, a team back here wants you to donate something, and they're doing a raffle someplace else and they want something, or there's always somebody who wants a free frame or a bike or something. And for everybody in the industry, in the bike industry, they've been hustled 50 times by video producers or this guy or somebody doing something. And Howie had it happen to him a dozen times. But in any event, they kicked it around. They said this studio had called them, and they wanted some bikes to do a movie they were doing. And they really kicked it around. They debated whether or not to do it. And Craig, to this day, says that the reason they ultimately did it was that Howie Cohen owned Everything Bicycles. And this was Steven Spielberg. Common Jewish backgrounds, man. And Howie decided, yeah, let's take a shot at it. And they made 6 bikes for them. And they wanted them painted a particular way, which was red fading to white, which wasn't a Kuwahara color scheme at that time or anything like that. So anyway, they donated the 6 bikes, painted them special, stuff like that. And R.L. Osborne was one of the riders. I forget who the other guys were that rode it. And but where they screwed up on a grand scale, and we talked about it. Craig called me. I went out to Everything Bicycles on Cash over there in Torrance, and we sat around and talked. And I had done a lot of skateboard business, and 90% of my business was with the mass market. I sold a lot to the skate shops and the surf shops and stuff, but I sold a ton to Kmart and JCPenney and people like that. And I talked to him about it and said, take it to the mass market. I mean, you got a natural vehicle here. You got a movie that's going to be produced and out there selling your product for you. And you go to a major big box store and you say, we've got a movie coming out and this bike's a feature part of the movie, you'll Toys R Us. My God, it's a slam dunk. But Howie's was extraordinarily loyal to the IBD, to the independent bike dealers. And had always done business with the IBD. His family had always done business with the IBD. The Cohens, were the founders of West Coast Cycle. They had Nishiki, they had all this stuff that they did that was a Cycle Pro and all that stuff. And anyway, long story short, they decided against taking it to the mass. They just did it to the independent bike dealers. And the independent bike dealer couldn't have cared less. And so they did, here they had ET bicycles, and the IBDs wouldn't buy them. And ultimately, right down the street from us at SE, a block and a half away was GJS. George Utterback and Jeff Utterback and Scott, not Scott Breithaupt, but Scott Utterback. And George was close to Howie and those guys. And when they couldn't sell the ET bikes, ultimately Howie staged containers of them behind GJS, and George had a contract to pull them apart, take all the parts off, strip the stickers, have them repainted, and put them back together and sell them as just Kuwaharas. And they didn't make a dime off the deal. I mean, you talk about a blown opportunity. It was unbelievable. But that's what actually happened, is that the ET bikes got